Okay, we've all heard that buzzword, right? Digital transformation. It's supposed to be this magical key to a brighter, super efficient future for companies. But what if I told you most of them are failing at it, spectacularly? Today, we're going to crack open Tony Saldanha's fantastic book, Why Digital Transformations Fail, to really get to the bottom of one of the biggest business challenges we face today.
So right off the bat, the book hits us with a number. And honestly, it's a pretty shocking statistic. This is the kind of thing that should make any CEO or business leader just stop and think for a second.
Yep, 70%. According to the research Saldanha cites, a staggering 70% of all these big, expensive digital transformation projects, they fail. Just think about that. That is an unbelievable amount of wasted time, money, and missed opportunities. But, what does a failure like that actually look like in the real world?
Well, to make it feel real, the author tells this great personal story. He's scrambling, trying to find a last-minute anniversary gift for his wife. He drives to the local Macy's, and it's just gone, shuttered, out of business. And suddenly, this big, abstract idea of disruption becomes very, very personal.
And that story just nails the point, doesn't it? The closing of one Macy's, or a Sears, or a Toys R Us, that's not some random, isolated event. It's a symptom. It's what the media loves to call the retail apocalypse. But really, that's just one small part of a massive, planet-wide industrial revolution that's unfolding all around us.
But here's the thing, and this is so important. This kind of massive disruption, it's not new. Not at all. To really get what's happening today, we actually need to look back at history. Believe it or not, we've been through this before.
So the book has a great way of framing this. It says digital transformation is basically the giant leap from the third industrial revolution, the era of PCs and the early internet, into the fourth. And the fourth is this wild new age where the digital, the physical, and even the biological worlds are all starting to merge. We're talking about a period of huge fundamental change, just as big as the ones that came before it.
And this right here perfectly sums up the challenge. Think about it. Back in the day, during the Second Industrial Revolution, you had companies like the John Stephenson Company. They were amazing innovators. They made the absolute best, fastest horse-drawn carriages you could buy. But that's innovation. Transformation? That was building the first automobile. They just couldn't make that leap, and poof, the company vanished.
Which brings us to the book's main point, and it's totally counterintuitive. We all kind of assume these failures happen because a company didn't have the right AI or the best cloud platform, but here's the twist. That's not it. The real reason 70% of these transformations crash and burn, it has almost nothing to do with the actual technology.
Okay, so if technology isn't the problem, then what is the solution? Well, the book lays out a super clear, structured roadmap for how to actually get through this disruption successfully. It's called the 5-stage model. Now, to really get the mindset behind this model, just look at this comparison. It's mind-blowing. The success rate for digital transformations? A pretty pathetic 30%. But then you look at something incredibly complex, like an airplane taking off, and its success rate is practically perfect. So you have to ask, what's the difference? How can that be?
It comes down to one word: discipline. The airline industry didn't just stumble into that near-perfect success rate. It wasn't magic. They built it over decades with incredibly rigorous, disciplined processes, checklists, and systems, all designed for one thing: to prevent failure. That is the secret ingredient that's missing from most digital transformations.
So let's take a look at how this model actually builds that discipline. This is the path the book lays out. It's a roadmap that can take a company from just, using some digital tools to making transformation a core part of its entire identity.
Okay, so the stages are pretty straightforward. You start at foundation, then move to siloed, then partially synchronized, fully synchronized, and finally, the ultimate goal, living DNA. Each of these stages is like a level up in maturity, and to get from one to the next, you need to master a new set of disciplines.
So what does success actually look like in this journey? The book breaks it down into 2 absolutely critical phases. First, you have to take off, and then you have to stay ahead.
Taking off, that's making the initial leap. Remember our horse and carriage company? They failed to take off. But then there's staying ahead, and that's all about long-term survival. Take Studebaker, for example. They were a carriage company that actually did transform into a car company. They successfully took off. But they couldn't sustain it. They couldn't stay ahead of competitors like Ford and GM, and eventually they failed too.
And this really shows the whole journey. See, down at stage 1, you're just digitizing. You're upgrading your tech, maybe using a new platform, you're doing digital things. But fast forward to stage 5, and your whole company operates digitally. Constant, disciplined innovation is just part of your DNA. You are never, ever done.
And that's the crucial takeaway here. The end goal isn't to just check a box and say, okay, transformation project complete. No, the real goal is to build an organization that can constantly reinvent itself, an organization where change and adaptation are as natural as breathing.
And getting to that living DNA stage, it's not about luck. It's not about catching a lucky break. It's a result of a deliberate, repeatable process, one that's heavily inspired by industries that have absolutely mastered reliability.
For instance, the book brings in this powerful idea from aviation safety called the Swiss cheese model. The idea is, you imagine your defenses against failure as a bunch of slices of Swiss cheese. A disaster only happens when, by some fluke, all the holes in all the slices line up perfectly. So the goal of a disciplined system is simple. Make sure those holes can never, ever align.
And how did the airline industry do that? You guessed it, discipline checklists. They figured out the most common causes of failure, the biggest holes in the cheese basically, and they built these rigid, repeatable processes to close those holes. Every single time. And that is the model for digital transformation.
So, let's wrap this up. What are the big takeaways here? First, digital transformation isn't some kind of magic wand. It's a process. Second, you absolutely need a roadmap, like the 5 stages we talked about. Third, it demands rigorous, disciplined, almost checklist-style execution. And finally, and this is the best part, success is something you can engineer. It's not something you just have to hope for.
And all of this leaves us with the book's final, incredibly powerful question. A question for you and your organization. Is your organization simply doing digital, or is it truly becoming digital? And that right there is the difference between treating technology like just another tool and completely rebuilding your company's DNA for this new industrial revolution. It's a question every single leader should be asking themselves right now.